Alright, let's do this. It's another episode of America's Hometown Horror, and guess who's back, Andrew? Guess who's back? It's your favorite sponsor, your favorite toothbrush. Why don't you tell the audience who that is?
It's gotta be the Bruche.
It's gotta be the Bruche, baby, because it is. And Bruche, in case you haven't heard, is an electric toothbrush that will change the way you think about brushing your teeth. With powerful sonic technology and ultra-gentle bristles, the Bruche redefines what it means to have super clean teeth. It's like that feeling when you just leave the dentist, a fresh, whole mouth clean every single day. Our listeners, go ahead. What are you doing? What's up?
No, keep going.
Okay. Our listeners, that would be the listeners of America's Hometown Horror. Brew. Get 15% off their total purchase with code POD15. That's POD15. Follow that link in our show notes and enter the code POD15, again, POD15, to get your exclusive discount and upgrade your oral care routine. I love it. Wow, what a great endorsement for Bruche. So awesome job. And away we go.
If anybody needs Bruche, it's fucking Jaws. Just saying.
What is up, folks? What's going on? And welcome into another episode of America's Hometown Horror. My name is Mike, and thanks again for tuning into another episode of our show. Happy to be here, happy to be heard, and as always, I'm not doing this alone. I am joined by my fellow co-hosts, Andrew. Hello.
Brew.
Hello.
What up?
Hello. And Catherine. What's up?
Not much. What's up with you?
What's up with you? Get out! Seinfeld references.
Out? Oh,
yeah,
I was
Seinfeld.
like, what?
You should have knocked her off her chair.
I did the. No, I know. I would never do that. I did the. Yeah, that'd be bad. That would not be good. I gave the Uncle Leo hello to you, and then also the get out for Elaine for you.
Gotcha.
So what's up, guys? What's going on?
Not much.
Talk to me, Andrew. What's the dilly?
See, now all I can think about is Uncle Leo when he's
with the eyebrows
in prison after he gets arrested for
Jerry?
shoplifting from.
Hello,
Jerry. Hello, and he's got it on his knuckles.
Clearly a scene ripped from Scorsese's remake of Cape Fear with De Niro.
Makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Which is actually a really good movie.
Underrated, even though it's got Wahlberg in it.
No, you're thinking of Fear.
Oh, that movie sucks.
Cape Fear is the one with Nick Nolte and De Niro. It's a Scorsese movie where De Niro is. It's a remake, and De Niro's like the villain.
Isn't De Niro in Fear too?
No, it's.
I'm thinking of a different movie.
You're thinking that's a movie with Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon. I forget who the dad is.
Who's the dad?
I don't know. Somebody should look it up.
I thought it was Robert De Niro.
All right.
I'm probably wrong. Maybe Gary Busey, Nick Nolte. I feel like it's one of those two.
Well, Nolte is the. Nolte is the.
This seems like a time for Nolte.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
So the movie's called Fear?
Cape Fear.
No, the one that I'm mistaken.
The Wahlberg movie's called Fear.
And we're trying to figure out who the dad is.
Yes, you're trying to figure that out. Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
as Otis continues to
lick
lick my foot incessantly while we're here in the podcast studio. Not distracting at all, but anyway. Hey, follow Otis at the Spooky Hound Dog. He posts from time to time, gives his dog horror movie reviews, I should say.
William Peterson.
Oh, from CSI. Yeah. Yep, okay.
Alyssa Milano's in that, too.
Is she really? I don't remember her in that. Interesting.
Very interesting.
But, so I guess before we kind of kick things off tonight and talk about the things that we usually talk about, Kat, I wanted to showcase your talents tonight, and I wanted to talk to you about something that you did that we have kind of talked about at the end of episodes since it has been launched.
Okay.
So I want to ask you, and I want you to talk about our website, because I feel like it hasn't been given the proper attention that it deserves, given all the hard work that you've put into it. We have a website now. Kat, you designed it. Talk about it.
So on our website, you can find a little bit about the show. We don't have too much about each other yet, besides our
Andrew has advocated
titles.
that he needs a new picture, by the way.
Yes.
We'll get him a new one.
Yes, we'll get him a new
I'm way
picture.
better looking than I look in that
I
picture.
like that
I look like
picture.
an old fucking loser.
I feel like
that can't even read
I feel like
or
it's
do anything.
very you.
You look like you're contemplating
I look like
everything.
I'm educated, but
Yes.
I'm not educated.
I think it's amazing.
I think we need
love
to get a
that
picture of me where one eye is looking at the ceiling fan while the other eye is looking at your shoe.
It's amazing.
Like, fucking whole other level. Like, let's be real. I'm not that educated. I'm pretty dumb.
Well,
you're
I
not.
think
I am just blind.
certain people,
No.
certain
No, no,
people,
no.
including myself, might argue otherwise because I think you are educated and you don't give yourself enough credit.
I agree.
Yes, you can have a better picture on the
I
website.
may be
but
educated, but do I act educated? Negative. So hence,
yeah,
I'm
actually,
uneducated.
yeah, debatable. But yeah, so aside from Andrew's picture that he doesn't like on the website, what else can you
Correct.
find on there?
You can find our podcast and you can listen to it live on the podcast page.
Yep.
There's a contact us page, so you can fill out a form if you wanted to ask us
If
any
you ever want to
questions or
email
anything.
us,
There's our emails on there, our social media tags. There's actually a social media page,
I saw that as well.
and it shows all of our recent social
can
media
I just
posts.
say one thing real quick?
Sure.
The next person that emails, I will personally give you $10. You don't get a koozie.
Wow.
You
Get a
will just
Venmo?
get $10 with our logo on
Maybe
the back.
$10 in a sticker. How about that? Because we have plenty of
With
stickers.
our logo on it, though. You're not going to
How are
spend
you
Right.
gonna
this
put
Well, I
$10
wasn't gonna give
on a
them-
meant to be
$10 bill?
spent.
I wasn't going to give them an Andrew sticker. It was a sticker from
And
our
I was going
show.
to probably give you
Yeah.
$10
Oh, I thought you were
in
gonna,
a
like-
bag of pennies.
I thought you were going to put our
But-
logo on a $10 bill. I
No,
was like,
that's-
how are you going to do
yeah.
that?
No. Just make a stamp on the back.
Just make a
Okay.
stamp.
All right.
Okay. Yeah,
Fair enough.
that's easy.
I'm
That's
sorry,
fine.
but we don't
That's all
accept.
right.
We don't
So-
accept money with the president's. Yep.
With lips on the president.
Lips on the president.
Yeah, there you go. I know what
There
you're
you
putting
go.
down
Knew
there.
where I
Yeah.
was going.
Gotcha. But I think the website's awesome. Kat did a fantastic job on it, and I think it looks
Thanks.
really good.
Yeah, and there will be a blog eventually. We're just kind of working on it.
we've teased that the last couple of episodes. That's something that I do want to relaunch.
That's gonna
for
happen
the
at
rest of the
some
year
point.
once we get out of our busy season over the next month or so. Because I guess we talk about our personal lives occasionally on this, but the next month is going to be crazy time for pretty much the three of us. So. It's gonna be tough. Bear with us. We might have some different episode drop days, but we'll be here for you if you're listening to our show. And again, we certainly appreciate the listenership. But the website's awesome. Go check it out. AHHpod.com, apod.com, just like some of our social media handles. Check it out. Subscribe to the feed. Do whatever you do. And it's awesome. Check it out.
Thanks.
Anyone watch anything cool over the last week since we recorded? The last topic we talked about was The Conjuring. I know we watched a lot of Conjuring movies last week. I honestly don't know if I've even had a second to watch anything horror related over the last week. What about you guys?
Either, to be
Yeah,
honest.
it's been a little
Yeah.
tough. Been pretty busy.
I've said it once,
Yep.
and I'll say it twice, and
Yeah.
I will probably say it a third time.
And a fourth
I've
and a fifth.
literally only been watching Seinfeld because it's leaving Hulu, and who knows when it's going to be available on
Right.
Netflix. So
Yeah.
I am trying to get as much Seinfeld because
Seinfeld
I
as you
need
can.
Seinfeld
Yeah.
every day.
You can just get it on. Oh, do you have cable?
You need
You just
to
stream.
feed your Seinfeld addiction.
I stream.
You
I need to.
stream,
I don't
yeah.
have TBS, and I don't appreciate commercials for sitcoms.
I understand.
The show's long enough. I don't need that.
I think the only thing that we've actually had time to watch over the last couple of days is Top Chef. Which,
Yeah.
Top Chef is
Top Chef is awesome.
I
So good.
love Top Chef, but it's a mindless Bravo TV
I
entertainment.
love guys' grocery games. Show's awesome.
See, I'm a big diners, drive-ins, and dives guy. I don't really watch guys' grocery games. Triple G.
I
watch
like it just as much as
Triple D.
what's the one with that guy with the glasses? It's a food. show.
What's his name?
On,
Alton Brown.
Not Alton Brown, the other nerd. Alton
Other
Brown's
nerd.
awesome, but it's like a competition where they have to just cook random food. What's it called?
MasterChef.
No.
Chopped? Oh, with
Chopped,
Ted
Chopped,
Allen. Yeah,
Chopped.
I
Oh,
love
yeah,
Chopped.
yeah. I
Love
love
Chopped.
Chopped. Yeah.
Chopped is so good.
Guy from Queer Eye,
I've played
yeah.
Chopped at my house before. It's
Oh,
a very fun
absolutely.
game. We
Absolutely.
should have.
If
a
you
round of
fail to
Chopped.
win
That would
this
be fun.
round, you
That'd be
will
really
be
fun.
chopped.
Mike will pick what's in the cupboard, and we cook.
And then we each cook it.
I mean, if we I feel like to properly do a Chopped episode amongst the three of us, we would have to have our own stovetop setup.
That's a good point.
That would be
That's
a
good
tough
point.
thing to do.
Yeah.
That's where I learned cornflakes breading. Playing
right.
Chopped because I had nothing else like cornflakes. So now I will bread everything in any cereal possible.
Yeah. The only scenario where I could envision we could potentially do it would be if there were two of us in our kitchen, because there's two big burners in the kitchen, and somebody else, I guess we could all use the grill. Somebody would have to have exclusive access to the burner on the side of the grill outside, and then we could also grill some stuff.
Oh,
that would be- it would be very
seems like
tough.
There's a lot.
Seems
of-
like we'd probably
Can I just-
drink too much and burn the house
Can I just,
down.
Yeah.
I'm trying to text this, but I have a great idea.
Okay.
Fried avocado
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
in a chocolate
Chocolate
flake.
Jonathan Frakes, not
Okay.
this time.
Chocolate flake crusted avocado topped with mascarpone cheese, drizzle of honey, and a shaving of dark chocolate would probably be
Borderline.
maybe some salted caramel drizzled over it.
Okay.
Like a dessert, because
I mean, it sounds
avocado
like
should be able to
it sounds
take on
like
both roles. Why isn't avocado used as a
understand.
dessert? Because it's creamy, it's moist. You could make a cake instead of using bananas in your stupid cakes. Use an avocado. Probably would be a little denser.
I think people do
Probably
that.
would be better as a brownie. No, I see all these recipes for banana things, and guess what? Bananas
Banana
are fucking
muffins.
disgusting.
No.
Ugh,
Just
I don't.
Disgusting. Disgusting.
You know what's disgusting? Bananas. All right, I'm ranting long enough.
Oh
I
my
apologize.
God! Hey, do you
But
guys want to?
fuck
Hey, do
bananas.
you listeners out there? You want to see a food cook-off between the three of us? Let us know on social media. Comment on our photos, tweet at us, email us, whatever the fuck you want.
And if you make sure, let us know.
Yes.
Absolutely. Want to talk some news?
Radishes.
We talk about tonight's movie, which I think we're all excited to talk about.
Yeah,
as Otis
definitely.
eats my
Let's
goat.
go. News.
So
news.
we talked about this a couple weeks back, or a couple months ago, I think. Kat, you and I are huge fans of the What We Do in the Shadows TV series, right?
Yes.
It's like
So,
the 8th time you guys have talked
We
about
mentioned that there is a spin-off of that show coming called Wellington Paranormal. It's actually finally coming out next month, as Otis is borderline having sex with my foot right now.
Dude, how much salt's on your leg?
don't
Did you
know
take a
idea.
shower, bro?
No.
Me neither.
Not tonight. So yeah, the What We Do in the Shadows the What We Do in the Shadows spin-off series called Wellington Paranormal comes out on the CW next month on TV. So basically, it's going to be the police force that was in the original What We Do in the Shadows movie. All takes place in the same universe. So a new show from the What We Do in the Shadows folks, which should be pretty good. It's basically them investigating paranormal stuff. Should be fun.
Can I say one thing about that show?
Yeah.
I immediately would watch it strictly based off the fact that Beef Wellington
Is great.
is
the best.
so good.
Possibly the peak
And
beef experience. We're
If you
talking
ju-
so
you-
much
you-
food
You
tonight.
say Wellington,
Yeah.
sounds good to me. It's like bacon. Oh, it's got
Okay. Great.
Well, it's a beef chicken Wellington.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if that's a thing. Maybe it should be. Maybe it shouldn't be.
Okay.
Who knows?
Cool. So yeah, Wellington Paranormal. You can find it on the CW next month in July. Once
That's
we
actually
once
still
we
a
hit
channel.
July. Yep, absolutely, sure is. It has lots of teenage-friendly TV series like the.
So you guys watch a show on CW?
No, God. No.
You're gonna watch a show
We
from
watched it.
CW?
No, it's going to be on
Gourmet
HBO Max
CW.
as well. It's going to be on HBO
The
Max.
PJs on that channel too?
What?
PJs?
The PJs?
What are you talking about?
No idea what you're talking about.
Never mind. Let's
You guys
move
are
on.
way too white to know that
So
show.
Andrew, you had an idea to come up with a Jaws theme for Bruges when we were coming.
I
into
already
this
did
episode.
that in the midway through the advertisement.
No, I know, and I was going to say you did it before I was rudely
Oh,
interrupted.
by myself.
Wow.
So here's an interesting piece of news as we come up on the 1 year anniversary of our Jaws episode, which we had a lot of fun doing.
That's why I did it.
Love that fucking movie. It's one of my favorites, and I'm happy we covered it in our first year. But there was a report that came out on Bloody Disgusting today that Steven Spielberg is reportedly actively determined from preventing a Jaws reboot to happen, because apparently it's almost happened several times.
Wow.
I love this. It's fantastic, and honestly, Spielberg is notoriously protective of his movies
Yeah.
and there being, stupid sequels. More directors and more people should be like this, because not everything needs a sequel, especially Jaws. Not everything needs a sequel.
Can I give you an example of a sequel to Jaws that's
Okay.
already been made?
The Shallows,
Already out there?
Deep Blue Sea.
Anaconda.
Anaconda's a good movie. Underrated.
Underrated.
John Voight
John
and-
Voight.
Yep.
Essentially Jaws.
John Voight bit you?
John Voight is Quint. They're the same guy. Essentially. No?
Yeah, they are. They're actually very similar in that movie. I'm sorry. I was
Who's
distracted.
Richard Dreyfuss?
Ice
Cube?
Ice Cube, maybe? Yeah, I was going to say.
And Robert Schneider is J-Lo. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
Roy Scheider.
Roy Scheider.
Yeah.
Robert Schneider. Same difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, that movie is essentially... That would be a remake to Jaws. So that's what you get.
Yeah, kind of the same idea, but, as I was mentioning, I think this is awesome of Spielberg because not everything needs a sequel. Not everything needs a reboot, and Jaws is a sacred movie in my mind. There should not be another Jaws movie. They did a few sequels. They all sucked. They tried to do it again. Didn't work. Look what happened with Jurassic Park sequels. They're of varying quality. Some of them are good. Some of them aren't. But, Spielberg directed some of them he didn't. But, I think it's great when somebody says, okay, you know what? It's a classic movie. We don't need a sequel to it. And one example, I think of, another example of Spielberg being so protective over his movies. So, have you ever noticed that at Universal Studios, think about the last time we went there, okay? Mm-hmm. The only ride that is still there now, from the day the park opened, is the E.T. ride.
Oh, okay.
Which was a Spielberg-directed movie.
I've been on that ride.
I have too. We went on it together.
Yep. I've been on it before.
The Jaws ride's closed now.
Yeah.
But Spielberg was a creative consultant when they opened Universal Studios Florida. So he had input on everything, which is why two of his movies were rides there, Jaws and E.T.
Yeah.
Reportedly, he has been so against, he pretty much has told Universal, if you close the E.T. ride, I will never make another movie for you again. That type of thing. Because he holds E.T. so dear to his heart. So,
sure.
I think it's respectable. I think there's no way that Jaws should ever be rebooted, so I'm with him. But basically, here was the quote from the story, okay? So Deadline had the story, and they note that this week, a report about Spielberg's dealings with Netflix. So Netflix was apparently trying to reboot Jaws. Quote, one area Spielberg will not revisit is Jaws. Deadline heard recently that Universal broached the subject to reboot Spielberg's breakout classic with Spielberg producing, and the answer was a resounding no. Some at Universal and Amblin said this was already known and not a recent conversation, which to Steven Spielberg, I say, bravo, sir. Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
I agree with that 100%.
Cool.
So you're saying that was E.T. his first movie?
So E.T. was his, I think it was his first big studio release. He did that movie Duel. So
that's why I was like, why?
No. E.T. was after Jaws. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, Jaws was 78. E.T. was 81.
I was just thinking chronologically.
No, Jaws was his big breakthrough, and then E.T. So actually, we talked about this in the Poltergeist episode. Yep. He was working on E.T. and Poltergeist at the same time. In 81.
Okay.
So yeah.
Because I was like, why E.T.? Why not the Jaws movie?
Right.
Why not a different ride?
Yeah, I just think E.T. has a special place in his heart.
That's
but,
fine.
Yeah, I agree.
Elliot.
Oh.
Eva. I feel like it's the same thing.
Oh, I know, Wally.
Eva.
I
love that.
All right, you guys ready to talk about A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place Part 2? Ready to rock and roll?
Related?
Yes.
Yes, apparently they're
just
sequels
wondering.
to each other. Yes, absolutely.
I was going to talk about that, but...
All right, so tonight's topic, in case you haven't seen the episode title, is A Quiet Place Part 2, which is the latest in the line of 2021 horror movies that we've covered so far in our show. The last one we did was last week. It was The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, a.k.a. The Conjuring 3, which we gave our thoughts on. Go ahead and check it out if you haven't listened to it yet. But... this is the second movie in 2021 that we have seen in movie theaters, and I would say, without going into too much detail, this was not as optimal of a movie viewing experience as it was with Spiral, because there were more people in the theater, and there were some assholes seated behind us who were loud and didn't shut up the entire movie, which made it suck. That's all I have to say about that.
It definitely wasn't a quiet place.
It was not a quiet place.
It was a very loud place to watch a quiet movie.
What I'll say is, if you're going to see a movie in theaters, don't be an asshole. Shut your mouth when the movie's on. Shut the fuck up. Watch the movie. Don't be an asshole. Just shut the fuck up.
You don't even have to turn your phone off.
Dick.
Just don't make
No,
noise.
I just say, be respectful of everyone around you.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so this is the second week in a row that we are covering a sequel to a movie without having actually covered the first movie on our show.
Oh.
So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about A Quiet Place, the original one. And Catherine, I will start with you on this because I know this movie holds a special place in your heart.
Absolutely.
Why don't you go first?
No, I liked the first Quiet Place a lot.
Okay.
It was one of those movies that we saw, and I was like at the edge of my seat the entire time, and it was like.
It is very suspenseful.
Total opposite to this experience of the Quiet Place too, since it was a loud experience. I felt like there was next to no noise in the first Quiet Place movie, and it was like a packed theater, and there was no noise the entire time because it's such like everyone is going. Besides like the soundtrack, there was no noise through the entire thing, and it was just so suspenseful. It was just like, oh my gosh, okay, what's gonna happen next? Where's this? And like the boo scares were like spot on, like.
Well, and I feel like that was part of the gimmick for the first Quiet Place, right? Is that it's a theater-going experience like none other, where everyone has to be quiet to be able to like pick up on everything. And I saw it in theaters as well when I was in Dallas for work for a month. I saw it in Dallas by myself, and it was one of the best movie-going experiences I've ever had because everyone did shut the fuck up. And it was so quiet in there. It was like I was watching the movie by myself.
You could hear a pin drop, yes.
Yep. So, I asked you this, Mike. Having seen it, the first one in that experience, and then having seen the second one in a loud, annoying experience in a movie theater, did it still hold up without those intangibles?
So, yes, because I think personally, I had seen A Quiet Place, like I mentioned, in Dallas. I was not with Kat at the time. I was in Dallas on a work trip for a month, essentially. And so I saw it there. And then the second time that I watched this movie, I feel like I didn't like it as much. I feel like part of the experience was seeing it in theaters when it was very quiet. On the big screen. And like this, there have been other horror movies that have done it. But I feel like A Quiet Place is as good as any movie ever of utilizing sound as a way to build tension and scare you. That was the benefit of the first movie. Especially, like, you know, seeing it in theaters, it was quiet, it was good. This one, I feel like, is a little bit different, which I'll get into. I like this movie a little bit better than the first one.
Really?
But yeah, the first movie lost its luster for me seeing it a second time because when you watch it on a TV, it's not the same as seeing it in theaters for that experience. For me personally. So A Quiet Place, the first one, is very good. I would not hold it in the same regard as a movie like Get Out or Us or some of the other newer classics that have come out.
Sure.
I would say.
I think it's a very good, but it's a forgettable movie. I feel like it's very forgettable.
You mean the first Quiet Place?
The first one. Okay. This one is probably just as forgettable.
Why do you consider it to be forgettable?
It just doesn't have that...
Because lots of people feel otherwise.
So I don't know what it is, but it just lacks that certain... to me, it just doesn't have that spark. Like, it doesn't scream classic horror movie. It screams awesome movie, but it screams awesome movie that I have probably forgot about like 12 times because there's so many awesome movies that I've seen that I forget about. And they're great, but
still the first one you're talking about, right?
The first
one.
But this one still, I mean, this movie was awesome, but it's still...
Oh, we're still in the first one. It's okay. I think... I do think this one is better than the first one. But I do think the first one, you know, given when it came out and the way it kind of took over pop culture for a little bit, because make no mistake, this was probably one of the most popular horror movies to have come out over the last 5 years.
Absolutely.
Especially given the sense that, you know, John Krasinski was in it and it was like a different type of horror movie with some comedic actors like John Krasinski, obviously, Masshole. I just think it kind of took everyone by storm because it was a different type of movie. Yeah. Everything was quiet. And I know, Andrew, we'll talk about this, but there have been other movies that have ripped this off to not as much quality. But when Quiet Place came out, I feel like it just kind of was all over every single sense of, like, you know, if, like,
I think that was
whatever
mainly
year it came
because
out,
of John
2018,
Krasinski.
2018, right? 2018, 2017, something like that.
Yes.
Like, that was as much of a part of the pop culture,
That's 2019.
aura of that year as any other horror movie has ever been before.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Andrew, you were saying something. Go ahead.
No, I feel like most of that is probably because of John Krasinski. Like, I don't think this movie gets that same level of popularity without that. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a great movie, but no one really cares about any movie that much. Mm-hmm. And they cared about this movie way too much, and I think it was strictly because John Krasinski from The Office made this movie. I don't think it had anything to do with the optics of the movie, anything. The movie's probably better than it's given credit for, but I don't know.
You know what I thought? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I didn't even make that connection with him in The Office until you... Because I don't watch The Office.
Well, The Office is awesome.
Well, there's an
Well,
office.
I know-
There's
yes,
an
I know.
Office reference in this, which I'll get to.
See, I didn't make that connection until you just said that. Because I've liked him from this movie, honestly. Like,
Yeah,
from
but
the first one and now...
known for The Office.
I understand that, but I didn't make that connection until you just said that.
I get that. So that's why I think it's so popular.
Well, you also watched the John Clancy series that he was in, the Amazon Prime series, right? Where he's Jack Reacher, something like that.
Oh my God!
Yeah, he's in
yes,
that.
He Dear John. No, is it Dear John?
No, not Dear John.
What's
He's a
he in?
secret agent.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
The ones
yes, I
with
did.
Harrison
What is
Ford,
it?
Patriot Games. Those
No.
movies,
Yeah, that guy.
Those are all Jack Reacher movies.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
so
the
Tom
ones with
Clancy-
Harrison
Tom Clancy
Ford
story.
are so much better.
So it's a Jack Reacher series. Yeah,
Yeah, he's
exactly.
in
and
those.
Tom Cruise played Jack Reacher in a movie.
Yeah,
and yeah.
What
Reach.
was
I think it was called
I wanna know.
Reacher.
No, it wasn't
No, no.
Reacher.
Oh, I
Tom
remember
Cruise
you were
was
watching
called
it, and
Reacher.
it was John Krasinski and the guy from The
Yeah,
Wire.
I
that
know.
plays
It was
Bunk.
on Amazon.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna have to
it was on
look it up.
Amazon. Yeah, yeah.
Definitely
yeah,
on
what's it-
Amazon.
I don't know what it
I
is.
Those are
want to know what
Jack
you're
Reacher
talking.
movies.
I know, but I want to know what you're talking about.
Yeah, look it up.
How do
Look
you
it up.
not know what
You
we're talking
what-
about?
I don't
so
know.
just to close the loop here
just-
on the original Quiet Place before we get into Quiet Place Part 2, because we're getting off the rails. I think the best part about that movie, in addition to seeing it in the theaters, it was very tense. It was a very cool, but I mean, not. It was innovative at the time, but now after the fact, it's not as innovative because a lot of movies have ripped it off post this movie. So, Andrew, we talked about Bird Box, The Silence, the one with Stanley Tucci about the bats and all that shit. So
Very similar.
it's been done to death at this point, even though Quiet Place was pretty much the first one to make this.
This
like
is pretty much a fucking Stranger Things.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Kids ruling the day,
Yeah,
Demogorgons.
yeah. So, all
fucking
right.
awesome.
So,
There's an
all right. So we've talked about
keep
a
going.
Quiet Place. Let's talk about a Quiet Place Part 2, which is why we're here tonight. And I feel like 28 minutes in, we should probably start talking about a Quiet Place Part 2. So, thoughts on this movie versus the first one? Andrew, I'll start with you on this one. What did you think of this movie, given your thoughts on the first one? What did you think? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What do you think?
I thought this movie was awesome. I loved the first opening 5 minutes of this movie. I thought it was one of the best introductions into a horror sci-fi suspense movie.
Yep.
I thought they killed it. I also thought that the monsters looked like the Demogorgons from Stranger Things with their flaring heads out.
Kat actually had that written down. Someone was going to
did.
ask her.
That was part of it,
I
yeah.
also thought that the fact that they had the kids rule the day, which is great. The children always solving the world's problems needs to end. Why not just let...
Well, think about when you were growing up
Who
in
was
the
it?
80s.
Kieran, who's the main actor in this movie?
Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy. What I would have liked to have seen, I thought it would have been better, is... We're in spoilers, because I said so. If you haven't seen
Yeah,
it...
I mean, at this
Alright,
point, if we're
fair.
talking about Quiet Place 2, if you haven't seen it yet,
How am I
and you are
supposed to make a
interested... Listen, we're doing this podcast 3 weeks after this movie came out, so yeah, we're talking spoilers
Yeah.
now.
Should be
Turn
able-
away.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Go see
When-
the movie,
when-
come back, listen to us.
When
Go
they
ahead,
were on
Andrew.
the dock,
Yep.
and he got choked by the weird
Yes. Yep.
pirate...
Yeah.
I'm going to call him a pirate.
I know,
More
he
on them
looks
later.
They
very-
were probably
yeah.
pirates.
More on them later.
I kind of wish that the little deaf girl had gotten killed, drowned in that
Wait,
moment.
what is...
Because I feel like
Jesus.
that would have been a better movie. Like, can we just see a movie where the kid doesn't
Oh my
win
God,
the world?
Andrew.
Because guess what?
Well-
Kids don't do shit. Let
So
alone
I just
save everybody.
I just
So
remembered
can we stop?
my final point from A Quiet Place, the original one. One of the things I think that kind of made that movie the most effective when I saw it the first time around was the initial shock of the youngest child dying within the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
That kind of like put you on a trajectory where you know, like, okay,
anything
that
goes.
kid died,
Yeah.
like anything goes here. Granted, it's a PG-13 rated horror movie, so you know it's not really going to go too far. But that was still shocking. I feel like about as shocking as a moment, as shocking of a moment as I've seen in a movie in the last couple of years. I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Kat, your thoughts on A Quiet Place Part 2?
I really liked it, obviously. I really liked the first one a lot, and I was excited to see the second one. And I liked how they, in the beginning scene, they kind of went back to before it all started. That was a really nice touch to it, where you could be like, okay, so they're saying, oh, you know, this place has, like, comets and stuff. But did they ever explain, like, what the comets were? Like,
Nope, they did not.
Is that those monsters arriving?
They give you a little bit, which we're going to talk more
That's
about
not even
that,
one of my
that
nitpicks,
scene.
but I mean, I'm just
No,
asking a
we're going to
question.
talk more about that scene because I have a lot to say about that that I'm
Okay.
going to save.
Fair.
But yeah, they give you a good amount of backstory in this.
And I like that, because then you actually see,
because you don't want everything explained in the second one. You want to be left with, like, wondering a little bit more.
Right.
Which I feel like this movie left you wondering what's going to happen next.
Kind
Which
of.
we talk about sequels all the time. We'll talk about that as well. Go ahead.
But I liked that you actually, like, saw, you know, the mom, like, talk to her son while she's pushing him in the swing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you're like, she's actually, like, she's looking normal. Like, everything looks so normal. And, like,
Yeah.
it's so funny because it took me so long to figure out who Cillian Murphy's character was.
Yeah.
Like, when she's like, show me your face, when they're in that,
Yeah.
like, little, what do you even call that? I want to say it's like a bank, because it has a little, it's like...
so they were
like a-
underneath, like, a steel factory.
Yeah.
That's why they had
Yes.
that. Yeah.
It was a little area, whatever, that they sealed themselves into.
I noticed him the second they went to the Little League game and he was sitting behind John Krasinski. They focused on his face. I knew who he was immediately.
I didn't...
Plus, I knew he was in the movie, and
Plus, he's a massive actor.
He's honestly, he's one
in
of my favorite actors.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's great, and he was great in this movie.
Best role,
Go ahead.
Scarecrow.
Yep. Go
No,
ahead.
but I was just going to say, I didn't recognize him, like, and even when he put his face down, like, I was just like, who is this guy again? And I was like,
Oh,
is
I
this
knew
his
right away.
brother?
Yeah.
Like,
See,
I was kind of putting it back
they
together.
led you into that kind
Yeah.
I know, but
Yeah.
I mean, at the
and
same
you didn't
sense,
pick
like,
up on that?
I don't know. I didn't. It was hard for me to understand that connection.
So just so you know,
For some reason, that
so
might
he
just
is
be
the Cillian Murphy, main character in 28 Days Later, plays the Scarecrow in Batman Begins, and also The Dark Knight, and also The Dark Knight Rises. He's in pretty much in every Christopher Nolan movie. He's in Inception. He's in Dunkirk. He's in what else? What are there?
He's not an Interstellar.
Okay, which
I
I
don't
still
know
haven't
if I
seen.
even-
I know
haven't
you're still
seen.
gonna rip me a new asshole for
Dude,
that.
fucking
All right.
watch it. You
Let's
have
stay
that
on
movie.
track here. So, my thoughts on A Quiet Place Part 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Mike, what's your thoughts on A Quiet
You guys
Place
gave your
2?
thoughts. I'm going to give mine. So, I actually think I like this one better than the original, which I mentioned before for a couple of different reasons. We were talking about the experience of the first movie where everything is quiet. That, I feel like, is good for one movie, and after that, it gets a little old. Time to mix it up a little bit. Okay? You got to do a little bit of different stuff, and I feel like they did that in this movie. I feel like it's a sequel that kind of plays the hits of the quiet stuff from the first movie. Also improves on the original because they enter some new territory. They also have some interesting backstory in there, which we'll talk about the prologue. And it shows how the apocalypse, the quote-unquote apocalypse, happened. I'm so over and sick of apocalypse stories I could throw up. But I feel like this was actually like a different kind of prologue, interesting story. It's not a zombie apocalypse. It's not that bullshit. It was good. I liked it. I was a fan. Also, I think it's safe to say personally, like, you know, from the behind the camera, behind the scenes viewpoint, that fellow masshole John Krasinski has a keen eye behind the camera and some serious directing chops, because I feel like the way this movie was directed, shot, The sound, everything was great.
Can we just talk about for 1 second how this reminds me of a good original M. Night Shyamalan movie?
Yeah.
Like with an awesome, like this, it's like Signs.
That was a
Signs
preview
is
before-
such an underrated movie.
That was a preview before the movie, remember?
Yeah, it was an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Old.
Yeah.
Look, over the top.
His movies I don't know how I
just
feel.
too
I think
much.
that movie looks stupid. I'm not gonna.
I'm not
I
gonna
do.
say that either. But Sixth Sense, Signs, Unbreakable, those movies. The Village. I liked The Village. I thought that was a good movie. I feel like
Village is okay.
I feel like, but no, I feel
Lady
like
in
this
the
is
Water and The Happening are two of the worst movies I've ever seen in my
awful,
life.
But his first movies, like he's come out with like six.
Sixth
great
Sense and
movies.
Signs are
Signs is one of
lights
the
out.
best movies, and the way that Signs plays upon that twist ending with just slight communication dialogue is so awesome. And I feel like this movie reminds me of almost like an M. Night Shyamalan movie, not in the ending, but just in the way that it builds up to that tension. It's very subtle, and it just slowly.
Yeah.
You slowly realize the story, and they do a great way of accentuating every important circumstance in that movie,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
what I think makes this movie so good, is that it's so subtle, but it's just very well done. It's
Yeah,
an awesome
he did a good
movie.
job.
The first 10 minutes of the movie, kill.
We'll talk about that more.
Yeah.
Let's save our thoughts on that because I feel like we're going to get to that at some point.
Okay.
Speaking of which, speaking of massholes and John Krasinski, anyone else notice in the prologue listening to Red Sox games on the on WEI?
Oh, I didn't. No.
Joe Castiglione and Dave O'Brien or whoever the other radio person is. Andrew,
pretty
you
cool.
didn't pick up on that?
Oh, in the beginning
They're
of the
listening
movie?
to the Red Sox game.
It's
in the
definitely
beginning.
Joe
Yeah.
Castiglione.
Yeah, absolutely Castiglione and whoever else does the Red Sox games now. Couldn't even tell you. Don't listen to the Red Sox on EEI anymore because EEI sucks. But I thought that was kind of cool. So, like, where do you think this movie takes place? I was thinking Connecticut, and Krasinski probably just inserted the Red Sox stuff because he's a fan.
Is it Connecticut? Connecticut,
Well,
I feel like have a lot of New York.
Well, they're
fans,
crossing
though.
over a border into New York, so I thought it either took place in Western Mass or Connecticut on the New York border. That's what I picked up.
To go through Connecticut.
Andrew, did you pick up anything on that?
They were definitely from Connecticut, most of them. New
Okay.
Jersey, New York.
Because
picked
how
up on
long
that.
did she say? Well, actually, because when they had a little map and it said how many days did you walk, and I thought she said 2.
And they were on the Appalachian Mountain Trail, so
Right.
it's definitely right off that.
So
it's probably
and
Connecticut.
The thing to notice too, I would say Connecticut because
Is it Block Island?
So Killian Murphy's character Emmett was listening to the Red Sox game,
Yes.
and they were all at a Little League game together, so they must all be from a town in Connecticut that supports the Red Sox. I wonder how far they had to walk. It was probably like that was one thing that I had for a
Do you
nitpick
get like a
potentially. We
War
can
of the
talk about that
Worlds kind of
very much
feel
so.
off this
Yeah,
movie?
that's a comparable movie, the Spielberg War of the Worlds.
yes,
right?
with
yeah.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah. All right, we'll get to that. But yeah, I guess to kind of close the loop here with this movie, effective scares, no surprise, some excellent use of sound, or a lack thereof, I would say, to kind of build tension and scare you. So, question for you, Kat, because you had it written down in the outline, which you helped me with tonight.
Yes.
So thank you very much
You're
for that.
very welcome.
So you did have on here, you thought the monsters and the situation were similar to a couple of things that we have watched.
Yes.
You know what those are, and do you care to comment on that? Because I agree with you on one of the two things.
Well, Andrew, I would give credit to Andrew saying that he thought the monsters looked like the Demogorgon.
100%.
So that's Andrew said that.
They
That
are
wasn't me.
the Demogorgon.
Yes. I mean, really, they are.
Their
because they
faces
flower
open
the
up.
head, everything.
Yeah, they're just bigger than the Demogorgon. Yeah,
And
just stupid.
I'd say it's not even relatable to the monsters, but I also wrote down in the outline that I felt like there were similarities to this as there were in like The Walking Dead, because it's like people that are trying to survive, and there's things out there that they're not really sure when. I mean, they know what they are, but like it has
So
that.
you're saying
suspense.
like, how do you feel about this movie's portrayal of
It's
what
kind
the
of like the
apocalypse
scenario.
would work for?
Exactly.
Like, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I think they actually did a good job of portraying, the
Oh,
circumstances.
dude,
because
the
especially
amazing where Cillian Murphy is locking himself in that, like, boiler or whatever it is.
Sealed thing. Whatever
I
it
was
is,
even
yeah.
going to say I thought the scene that when Regan the deaf
Regan,
girl.
Thank you. I was like, oh
So
my gosh.
when she's walking through that train and she comes upon the part that's ripped open and she looks at the other train that
And
was
they're
completely
all
ripped to shreds.
demolished.
That's a very cool shot and a very cool scene where you're like, okay, this is a different type of apocalypse here. These monsters just come and rip everything apart because these people were all obviously on trains and they all died. Which I think it's also like one thing I don't understand yet is like so the monsters clearly don't eat people. They just kill them.
They just
what do they eat?
They don't eat them.
Right. What do they eat?
They just kill everything.
Maybe they eat them eventually, but they just are like.
But all those
ravaging
people like on the
hyenas.
train in that scene, they all were like decayed and like
and they
intact.
never were
Right.
eaten.
They weren't ripped apart. They weren't eaten. Right.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
What do they eat? Grains.
We don't really know.
Maybe that'll
Apples?
be explored in the next movie.
Right.
Which I guess we're going
A
to get.
quiet
I'm
place to eat.
sure. Quiet Place
my gosh.
Part 3. All right, folks. So now it's time to ask you all. I know I have my personal rankings here. I would ask you, amongst your 2021 horror movies that you've seen, which, to refresh, some of them, or the ones that, here are the ones that I've seen. Andrew, you determine the ones that you've seen, okay? So, this movie, Spiral from the Book of Saw, Wrong Turn, which I've seen, Mortal Kombat, Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Willy's Wonderland, which I know I saw by myself. Where does this movie... I know you... Last week, you said that The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It was the best horror movie you had seen so far this year. Where do you rank this movie amongst everything you've seen?
So, Conjuring, Spiral, A Quiet Place.
Wow.
What?
Okay.
Where do you put this?
So, I have my ratings right here. I will
Okay.
read them. Catherine, why don't you go first?
I'm going to say Spiral's first because I'm kind of Saw biased.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'd probably say Quiet Place 2, Wrong Turn, Conjuring, Mortal Kombat. And are we doing Godzilla vs. Kong?
Yeah, we're counting that. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's my ranking.
So I have seen 6 movies this year. So I use Letterboxd, which is a social media platform where you can give movie reviews, and we're on there as America's Hometown Horror. If you search for us, you'll find us. Here's how I've ranked the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 movies that I've seen this year that are horror or horror adjacent, okay? I have A Quiet Place Part 2 as 4 out of 5 stars.
You're giving us stars?
Mm-hmm. I give them reviews.
Why don't you just
Followed
list
by-
them like everyone else?
Followed by Spiral from the Book of Saw, 3.5 stars. Followed then by Wrong Turn with 3.5 stars. Followed by Godzilla vs. Kong, 3 stars. Followed by Zack Snyder's Justice League, 3 stars. And then coming in at Conjuring Devil Made Me Do It, 2.5 stars. And then Willy's Wonderland, 2 stars.
Okay, can I pause this for a minute? So
Of
this
course.
is the hometown horror account, but this is
On
only your
Letterboxd.
But this is only your opinion. What about our opinion?
Well, I'm the one that manages
don't
all the
post
social
it.
media.
I mean,
you don't
come
post
So
it.
that's on you. That's
That's
not
not on me.
Post your opinion if you give a fuck.
Sorry. Go ahead. So I would consider it that way. I would say this movie, I think this is the best horror movie of 2021 so far,
I don't
followed by
like that
Spiral,
You have our joint
and then everything
opinion.
else that I said.
I don't like that.
Okay, well then create your own and say
No, it's
Cat,
the hometown
America's
horror. It should
Hometown
be
Horror.
all 3 of us.
Well, I can't do an average review
You
of all 3 of us.
should.
It's
Well,
just
you
my
could.
opinion.
You could easily average it out.
Oh my
easily.
goodness. All right.
I agree.
I think this should be a democratic
Fine.
effort.
Fair enough. All right, before we roll into our categories here, you guys, want to talk about some quick facts about Quiet Place Part 2? Down
Sure.
for that?
Oh,
Let's
down for
talk
the
quick
face.
Shout out to Kat for coming up with a good number of these.
Thank you very much.
So, obviously, A Quiet Place Part 2 is a sequel to A Quiet Place that came out in 2018, because I know we were wondering about what year this came out in, Andrew. So, 2018, 3 years ago.
Wow.
I feel like it's a pretty good turnaround for a sequel. 3 years. Okay.
Perfect time.
Which we'll talk about how this sequel came to be. But it was written, produced, and directed by, again, fellow masshole, John Krasinski. Shout out to John Krasinski.
I don't appreciate the whole masshole thing. Like, why do you say masshole?
What do you want me to call him?
I'm just
Son of
saying.
Boston, son of Massachusetts?
He's not a masshole. We're all massholes.
I feel
We're
like
all massholes together.
He would be happy to be called a masshole.
All right.
Guess. But so Krasinski recently was on a podcast called On the Big Picture podcast. He said on this podcast that he originally did not want to be involved in this sequel, but the producer convinced him to come over and pitch his ideas to the studio. So at that point, after 3 weeks, they asked Krasinski not only to write the story, but to direct the story. So he basically finally was like, okay, let's do this. And he jokingly suggested at one point that people played Jedi mind tricks on him to get him to write and direct this sequel, which, hey, Krasinski's a cool guy. I like him a lot.
See that,
I think he does a really good job.
I read something different.
I think so too. I think he's a great actor, great director, and I think he might have a bright future directing if that's what he chooses to do, because this movie, I think, succeeded in the areas where a good director succeeds.
Oh, absolutely. It was a very successful film.
So, Kat, you put in here that obviously, you get Krasinski in some scenes. Spoiler alert, by the way. You saw it in the trailers. You know it. But if you haven't seen A Quiet Place Part 2 yet, we are going to go into spoiler territory. So if you haven't watched it, go watch the movie. Or if you don't care, keep listening. I don't give a shit, personally, but spoiler alert.
And potentially for A Quiet Place 1.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what
for
I'm
both
that's what I'm saying.
Quiet Places.
Spoilers for both. Yeah. Spoilers for A Quiet Place and A Quieter Place. That's what I'm calling it.
Super Quiet Place.
So Emily Blunt, Millicent Simmons, and Noah Jupe reprised their roles from the first film. They basically play, John Krasinski's family. Okay, and they add Cillian Murphy and. Andrew, do you happen to know the pronunciation of this guy's name? I don't want to fuck it up because he's a great actor. Gladiator, this movie.
Joaquin Phoenix?
Digimon.
Just kidding.
Hansu. Digimon Hansu.
I don't know the name of that person.
I don't know either. That's what I'm going to go with. They both join the cast. Cillian Murphy plays Emmett, who is a friend of Lee, who's played by John Krasinski in the first movie, who is now a hardened, reclusive survivor whose wife and children were killed by the aliens. So yeah, great character by Cillian Murphy. More on him later, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Again, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen A Quiet Place, or you haven't, at this point seen A Quiet Place Part 2, tune out. John Krasinski, obviously, in addition to writing and directing this film, returns from the first film in a flashback sequence set before the film, which was the best part of the movie, no question about it. Production for this movie took place in Western New York from June to September of 2019, and it was produced on a budget of $61 million, which was over 3 times the amount of the original movie, which was $17 million.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Goes to show how much money A Quiet Place 1 made.
So you're kind of like, I think we kind of need to make a sequel to this.
Let's give you a huge budget. Go ahead, do your quiet thing again. Make money for us. Absolutely. Which is just fucking insane. Ugh.
Well, and the amount of money they've already made on top of streaming, it's not even out on streaming right now, because I remember asking you, I was like, are we actually going to the movies, or are we streaming it just at home? And he's like, oh, no.
I feel like I just refuse to get Paramount Plus, which is what this is going to.
It will go to there? Yeah, I know, I saw that, but I kind of wish I could see it at home. And you know what? Eventually it will be on HBO. Yeah. And I'd like to see it again at home, I feel like, just to have a different experience than the experience we had.
Well, I think, again, this would be a better watching experience at home.
I think so.
Than A Quiet Place would be, because this movie is a little bit different than the first movie in the sense that it's not just all quiet stuff and then loud stuff, right? No, it's a little bit different.
The beginning of this movie kills it. It immediately gets you drawn in. It's like Fast, Furious, and it's like War of the Worlds. Like, it's the missiles coming down. And
it was awesome.
Very War of the Worlds. It's awesome.
Let's talk about that. Let's pause that, put a pin in that, talk about it further. So, obviously, this is one of those movies that we talked about on the first year of our show that got delayed due to COVID-19.
Right.
Bullshit.
We
which
watched
is
this
fucking
trailer
stupid.
for like an entire
And
year.
it certainly seems like this is one of the movies that people finally came back out to go see.
Yeah, but
Because of
nobody
the
did.
amount-
Like, that's what bothers me about it, is there's nobody at movie theaters right now. It was still nobody.
Again,
It still
we
is- it
saw
was
this.
We saw it
we
on
this
Monday night.
And 3 weeks after it opened. Do you know how much money this movie has made
Oh,
so
did
far?
it kill it?
Oh my God. So, okay.
I was like, you didn't
To
say
give you
that,
some
right?
statistics, this was the biggest.
The biggest? What is that?
biggest.
That's amazing. The biggest. No, we're trying to keep that. That's it. That's
To give you
it.
some figures, some
Figures.
formulas.
Oh my.
This was the biggest opening weekend of the COVID-19 pandemic and has grossed $222 million worldwide,
In how many weeks?
making it the 5th highest grossing film of 2021 so far.
Wow.
Came out at the end of May. It's now June what? What's today's date? June
22nd.
22nd.
Yes, because tomorrow.
It's been out
actually,
a month. It's made $222 million.
Oh, is this gonna be released tomorrow? Like in the afternoon?
Yes.
So everyone who's listening right now, on June 24th, it's going to be the strawberry supermoon, and it's going to be the last supermoon of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So go outside and watch that moon come up from the eastern sky, and it's going to be beautiful. It's the
Okay.
last one of the year.
Cool. That sounds fun.
Sorry, that's my
fine.
PSA.
No, I know you love that stuff. So yeah,
I do.
Hey, I'll
I
tell you
love-
what,
I
if
love
you're
watching
listening-
the sky
If
and the
you're,
stars.
if you're listening in the first day that this episode's been out. If you see that, tweet at Kat.
Yeah.
Get a cat on
Say, I saw the
Instagram.
supermoon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Absolutely.
You want to know a couple horror movie references that John Krasinski threw out in this movie?
Sure.
Okay, so in the first scene, we talked about the prologue, right? All kinds of crazy shit going on. John Krasinski running around town trying to save his daughters. All kinds of monsters running around. Crazy shit.
The Mist.
According to Krasinski, in the town in the opening scene, there is a Brody's Pizza. And guess what movie that's a reference to?
Brody's Pizza.
You know it. Come on. We just talked about the movie earlier on this podcast.
E.T.?
Nope.
No.
Same director.
Brody's.
Different movie.
Same director.
Wait. Jaws?
Yep. Chief
Oh,
Brody.
I win.
Brody's
I
Chief
win. I win.
Brody.
Well, good for you.
And then, in addition to that, so in an early scene, the map shows the coastline of whatever state they're in, which we're assuming is Connecticut. It's next to Stamford, Connecticut, which is obviously a reference to John Krasinski's character from The Office, whose name is Jim. Interesting.
Muy interesante.
All right, so Kat, I know one of the things that struck us about this movie was the aspect that there's a big portion of this movie where it's portrayed from a person that is deaf. And I know you had some thoughts on this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, her character name is
Regan.
Regan. Sorry.
Regan. So
Regan.
I think it's probably a shout out to The Exorcist, so it's probably Regan.
Actually, yeah, kind of. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of shout outs to different things in here. I feel like it's kind of a nice. This whole movie's like a great combination of like a bunch of different things.
Yep.
But I read an interview, which I think you'll talk about in the outline, but pretty much she was asked a few different questions of like what her experience was being an actor and stuff, and you can go into detail about her different things, but pretty much I remember her saying in the interview, like, would it be hard to play a deaf person when you're not actually deaf? And she's like, I can't even imagine someone playing a deaf person if they're not deaf.
Yep.
Like, it's
So
not...
I have her quote here if you want. She said, quote,
me.
I think it's not realistic and it's not fair to the talent of those who aren't chosen because of their disability. That
Right.
doesn't make sense to me. And she was also asked, did you help your castmates learn sign language? And she said, we had an ASL coach and a sign language interpreter who, if people had questions about deaf culture and the history of sign language, or to make sure the sign articulation was correct, or if they wanted to learn more signs than just their lines, then they would teach that. And I really appreciated that. Noah is a fluent signer because we spent so much time together, and she's referring to Noah.
It's her brother on the movie.
Yeah, Noah Jupe.
Yes.
That's the name of the actor that plays her brother in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's very clear they both know sign language.
And they have a connection. Like in the movie, you
Absolutely.
feel that connection between them.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's so cool maybe at some point I've seen a movie with a deaf actor, but I think that this is just like, it speaks volumes to actors with disabilities and how they can become like the heroine of the entire movie. And it's nice. It's a great feeling.
So can I ask you something, because I know you said that, you were talking about the connection between the brother and the sister in this movie.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like that was one of the weakest aspects of this movie, was that there was
You didn't feel like they had a connection in this movie?
In the first movie, they had so much of a connection, and in the second movie, I feel like their storylines were so far apart, which obviously was written that way. It's not a fault of the actors.
But I guess maybe that's a way to roll from the first to the second one, that you already know they have a connection.
I was going to save this for nitpicks, but I feel like the best parts of the story were Emmett and Regan trying to find the solution to the new world, and everything with Emily Blunt and the other two kids was terrible. I was bored when they were all on screen. I'm sorry. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
In this movie, to cry the whole time?
I don't know. I don't know if she's in there to cry the whole time, but I just personally thought that was the weakest part, which we can get into because we're about to get into categories. But before we do, just a reminder that tonight's episode of America's Hometown Horror is brought to you by Bruce, Andrew's favorite category. Andrew's favorite sponsor, I should say. Jesus Christ, yeah, you need a Bruce. Bruce, in case you haven't heard, is an electronic toothbrush that will change the way you think about brushing your teeth with powerful sonic technology and ultra-gentle bristles. The Bruce redefines what it means to have super clean teeth. It's like that feeling when you leave the dentist a fresh, whole mouth clean every single day. If you're a listener of America's Hometown Horror, you can just go to our show notes and just enter the code POD15, POD15, that's POD15, to upgrade your oral care routine. And, okay, great. Go get a Bruce. Awesome.
You know what it isn't like?
A douche?
It's not like when you spill a ice-cold seltzer on your belly while you're drinking it.
I can't speak to that.
I bet a Bruce would help you out, though.
I don't know anybody that has done that. But anyway, we're into categories now. So let's talk about A Quiet Place Part 2 in terms of our usual categories. How about that?
Great.
So let's first start out with if we found this movie to be scary at all. And Catherine, I feel like you're the best person to talk about this with. Go first.
Yes, definitely scary. I was at the edge of my seat for half of the second half of the movie, we'll say, after Mike, spoke to a couple people that were being a little bit loud in the theater. So I was absolutely, it's one of those, and it was so funny, because I at least once or probably maybe two or three times had like some big like boo scares where I was like, oh my gosh! Like,
you definitely jumped a few times.
I totally jumped a few times in the theater.
Yep.
And that kind of makes me be like, I mean, I'm not gonna have nightmares about it necessarily, but it definitely like scared me.
There were some good jump scares.
There were some good jump scares. I don't even remember what they were, to be honest. I was just like,
I was just scared.
I can tell you my best jump scare. It was when Regan, Emmett, and Digimon Heinsu, whatever the actor's name is. I looked it up on IMDb. His character does not have a name in this movie, which I think is kind of fucked up. Yeah, it was a little odd that his character didn't have a name, but also that when they were driving in the convertible and the monster ripped the top off the convertible, and Regan all of a sudden lifts like the flap up, and she's like looking at the back, and she sees nothing, and all of a sudden the monster's like,
that was a big,
that got me big time. I was like, holy shit, that was a good scare. Very good scare. Very good scare. So that was my best scare. Also, the opening scene, the prologue, I guess if you will, had a ton.
But I feel like you were waiting for it in the prologue. Like you knew that, like
but I was waiting for that for like 5 years. Like but that's also, what I wanted to see when the movie came out the first time.
Same thing though, because it's regular life for a while, 10 minutes, and then
Isn't
all
that
of a sudden,
isn't that like the perfect like Stephen King The Mist?
Yes,
opening
absolutely,
to a movie?
absolutely.
It's so good.
And then all of a sudden, shit starts to go sideways, and you're like,
And it's
"What
perfect.
is happening?"
They pull it to.
And then
they
all of a
make
sudden,
that
it's just like
so good.
bang, bang,
Like,
bang, bang.
That's one
bang,
of the best.
bang.
That's
So
one of
good.
the best. That's like I was saying, like War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise isn't really a good movie, but the part where that happens, like where they start invading, is so
awesome.
good.
So good.
And they do the same thing.
People are getting like
that happened
disintegrated
in
and shit.
my dad lived in the same town. It was in Naugatuck, Connecticut. Mm-hmm. That's where it happened.
Yeah.
Like that scene in War of the Worlds, they filmed it there.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's such a great opening scene. Like it really.
So I'm wondering, Andrew, and talk to me about this, if my opinion of this movie is skewed because the opening scene was so good, and I feel like Cillian Murphy was so good. I felt like this movie dragged in certain sections. Like, do you feel like it was good throughout, or was it okay for most of the part?
I felt like this movie didn't drag for one reason. It was under 2 hours. So...
It felt longer than that, to be honest with you.
There were parts.
So
you know what? No, but I feel like
could have been our theater experience as well. Yeah.
But there was plenty of like just dull dialogue, which I thought was good for this movie.
Dare I say, I don't think they gave Cillian Murphy's character Emmett enough backstory.
Or backstory.
Yeah. Or enough camera time.
I agree. You just saw him as like the weirdo at like the game or whatever that maybe had a beer and was listening to the Red Sox.
And then he was like made out to be some asshole because he didn't want them to say
The only other thing that I picked up on was when Krasinski was still alive and he saw Cillian Murphy's character Emmett in the car and he said, "Did your brother hear anything on the base?"
So you know it's his brother.
His brother is in the army or the military or some sort of thing. That's the only other thing that you picked up on. Which, there was no,
and then you kind of
that.
figure out that like his kids and his wife have all died.
Well,
and,
then
like,
you see his dead wife laying there because the kid discovers it, like that type of thing.
But that's also not really explained. Like you kind of figure it out after the fact.
I thought for sure the way that they shot it, and tell me if I'm wrong in thinking this here, but like I thought when they kind of juxtaposed the scenes of him and Regan, Emmett and Regan, along with the family and all that stuff, like when the the son was trying to save the baby from everything and all that stuff, and then she was trying to walk back from the pharmacy, but they kept trying to, like, when the son was in the safe space he was in, it kept looking like he was going to, like, find something that was going to incriminate Cillian Murphy's
but he was never in a safe
like,
space. He was dying from lack of oxygen.
Well, I know that, but I'm saying
so
like,
he wasn't in the safe space.
No, I just meant like the steel factory in general. When he was walking around.
When he's not in the vault thing.
Not in the vault.
When he's poking around all the other rooms.
It just looked like he was about to find something like Cillian Murphy's character was like a child molester or a child murderer or something.
Well, that would have been way too much. That movie doesn't have that depth.
It looked like they were going there for a little bit.
Would have been awesome if they did.
It would have been cheap, though. I feel like it wouldn't have worked. So.
Well, that would have... for that movie, no.
All right, so we talked a little bit about whether or not it was scary. So let's talk favorite scenes. I mean, I'll start here. The opening scene was the best scene in the movie by far. We already kind of talked about it. It was an awesome, awesome, awesome scene. That was the one scene in the movie where I was kind of glued to the screen, and I could not take my eyes off it. It was fantastic. They did the film school geek thing where they did lots of like single tracking shots across, following John Krasinski from his truck to the Little League field and blah, 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 and all that stuff. Very, very, very good. I was enthralled the entire time. Sorry to spray on your face there.
It's all right. My favorite scenes were the ones that involved the fucking children.
Yeah.
I was all set with them.
Yeah, we'll go.
Like,
we'll get into that in nitpicks because I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. But what was your favorite scene of the movie?
Any scene that didn't involve those stupid kids.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
I was being legit honest with that.
Okay, fair enough.
The opening scenes were awesome.
What's Cillian Murphy's character?
Emmett.
Okay, Emmett. Sorry, I forgot. So one of my favorite, most memorable scenes was when Emmett and begins with an R.
Regan.
Both get to the island, and when he sees, like, everyone living there, like, in houses with a bonfire, hanging out, and his face just, like, drops. Mm-hmm. Because he had just told her, like, there's no one else out there, there's no one here, like, and he's probably in his own depression and stuff, but, like, to see, in that scene, to see his face, like, just be like, oh my god, there's people, and there's a safe place that I could have been living in that I didn't know about the entire time. Like, that was, like, a scene that I was just like, oh my god. His face was just, like, he was, like, mortified. Because I'm sure that there was so many things going through his head. Like, I'm like, making this up in my own head. That's reading way too into it. But, like, thinking I could have saved my wife and my kids and all this stuff if I had known that this song was going to be the safe place to find that was on a map, whatever. Yeah. Like, I mean, like, he's like, I can't believe I didn't figure this out. What normal person would
think of that?
Some people figured it out. I mean, that's why there's people there.
One other thing I'll say about the opening scene, by the way, which was absolute chaos. Probably one of the coolest parts for me is when Emily Blunt is driving the car. Her name's Evelyn in the movie, by the way, I think. Driving backwards at about 40 or 50 miles an hour, and the bus is driving straight, like, on her heels, like, and you see the monster slowly, like, you know,
coming out of the bus.
Yes.
That was so cool. What a
that
cool
was in
scene.
The previews, though.
Awesome. I know that, but it was also very cool to see in the movie theater. So, just saying.
I like how perfectly they did that opening scene, though.
It was great.
It was
the world's best scene in the movie. Yeah.
Awesome beginning scene to start a movie.
Yeah, so
builds that tension, builds that uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah, the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds movie is severely underrated.
It's very underrated. It's a pretty fucking awesome movie.
Spielberg movie. It's very good. Very scary, I thought.
Yeah. Very tension
very
building.
Much an analogy for 9/11. Did we do Best Death?
Not yet, no.
All right, let's talk about Best Deaths. Catherine, go ahead.
I really liked the death that I wasn't expecting was the guy who got dragged underneath the garage door when they were, like, at that radio station.
The guy who said he needed to go protect his family, and he got dragged out.
That guy was definitely going to die.
Yes. Well, and also, the one thing that annoyed me about that, though, was, like, when you're in there, why didn't you shut the fucking door?
Because he had to go save his family.
But either way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he has to go save his family. When behind you shut the door.
No, because he knew he was leaving. That was the whole point of that.
That's fine that he's leaving, but he needs to shut the door.
No, he's leaving, though. He doesn't care. Would you care if you were going to leave?
I would, because...
But you're not saving anybody.
If you were going to leave, you could at least wait, like, 5 minutes. Like, give it a little buffer, you know? Like, that's what... I mean, I feel like if you give it a buffer of, like, 5 minutes
would he be thinking about a buffer?
Yeah, see if, like...
If I may, children, the best death of this movie, by far, is when Cillian Murphy decides that he's going to be a badass and not sit by and be passive. And he throws the rope around the guy's neck, drags him into the water with all the noisy stuff, and or he stabs him in the leg first, causes the guy to scream, causing the monster to come destroy the guy. And he jumps in the water and gets himself off. And he saves Regan the entire time. Awesome.
But
that was the best. That was the best
death
in the
You kind of ruined the movie, though.
Why?
Why don't they eat anybody? They just kill them all.
Yeah, I don't understand.
That's
a big wonder.
Yeah, we don't have an answer to that. Yep.
And I feel like that should be the main answer, like
the main question.
The hugest question.
Right. Fair.
Why don't they kill
category?
One thing I will present to you guys, because I think this could work. It will never happen. I think a haunted attraction based on A Quiet Place could happen.
Oh, absolutely. I was
never
going to say the same thing.
Never going to.
You make it where if everyone's quiet, nothing happens. But if someone makes a noise, then you scare the shit out of them.
It would be amazing.
Here's what I had written down for myself, okay?
Like that would be great.
if you have rooms with the big monsters, you could do puppets, that type of stuff, and then you transition into a room where there's like soundproof walls, some shit like that. There's no sound, and all of a sudden there's sound. Bang. That would work, and that would be an effective haunted house in the vein of these movies, but it's never going to happen. They would never do that.
I feel like you'd have to do separate long rooms. It would have to be a very long haunted house to be able to separate one group from another, because that's part of the thing that kind of ruins it for you when you're going through a haunted house or haunted attraction, is the people in front of you who get the scare
therein
before
lies
you
the
do.
Problem.
Right. Whereas if you're
running a haunted house at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, you're running 10, 15,000 people through your haunt every night.
So
that will never happen.
They'd need to rent like
it never happened.
A football field.
Not this time.
And have like 2 people go in at a time, and it would have to cost them like $200 a head to go in this haunted house, which frankly I would pay. And you know what? Now that I'm coming up with this idea, I might patent it. So
let's do it.
I was like,
before you patent the idea,
raise some money to do some.
Let's wrap this up.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
MVP, Catherine, go.
I'm gonna say wild card. The baby is the MVP because it lives throughout.
Wow, what a terrible.
It lives
answer.
throughout.
Oh
it
my
lives
God.
throughout so many things.
Answer.
So many things.
By the grace of God and their
pretty
parents.
much. Yeah, I mean.
Anyways, next, Cillian Murphy.
Let her finish.
I was gonna say the baby's the MVP because I mean it survives through being shut in pretty much like a coffin the entire time, and it's this little innocent baby that like is just hanging out there that has no survival skills, can't do anything at all, like, but yet he's hanging in there. And like
the
lack
baby's
of,
the
lack
MVP,
of oxygen,
even
lack
though
of oxygen. Yeah.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
No,
it's
is
Cillian Murphy's character.
I'm with you, Andrew.
Emmett.
Do you want
It's
to
Emmett.
give any sort of explanation as to why, or do you want me to do so?
Because he's not some stupid fucking kid.
Guys, final thoughts on A Quiet Place Part 2 before we put a bow on this a bitch.
I just can only picture what's his face from Scream being like, "You're not dealing with a sequel. You're dealing with a trilogy."
Hey, that's
Jamie Kennedy. Is it Jamie Kennedy?
Jamie
who says
Kennedy,
that.
yes.
And he says it in the tape that he records before he dies. I can recite that entire movie by heart. It's so funny. But yes,
I
that's
know you're
what
a big
he's like.
fan of
I
this
know.
movie,
I'm
so-
sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. Andrew, final thoughts?
That's my final thought.
Good movie. Do you need a third one? No.
No, I think you
This is
do.
perfect enough. This movie did a great job of closing it out.
I don't think it's closed though.
I think it should be closed. If it's not, I think it was a way to close it. It's a good way to close it. Any more, and it's overkill.
it could.
I
All
think
good. End it.
if this was an end story, I think it'd be a good way to end it. Yeah, I don't think it needs a sequel.
No, nobody needs more. We don't need more. It's not a sequel. That's a treat.
Well, hey
Good
guys,
job.
here's what I'll say.
All impressed.
This has been a long episode of America's Hometown Horror. So if you're still listening,
Good
You're
for
a champ.
You.
my name
You
is
are
Mike.
probably
Thank
deaf.
you very much for listening to our show. I have been joined by my esteemed co-hosts, Catherine and Andrew. Thank you to them both. Say goodbye to your listeners, folks.
Good
Adios.
night.
Adios.
Good evening.
Thanks for
Shut up,
listening.
Otis. Shut up. Hey everyone, it's Mike from America's Hometown Horror, and just wanted to say thank you again for listening to another episode of our show, because of course, we would be nothing without you listeners. If you are interested in more local Plymouth podcasts, I would highly recommend you check out some shows by our cohorts on the Inebriart Podcast Network. That's right, the Inebriart Podcast Network, folks. In addition to America's Hometown Horror, you can find the Inebriart Podcast, Bar Talk, Theme Park Legends, Retro Redoctopus, and Old Colony Cast. Head on over and give them a listen.